All right, so it's a small round, but still I think we should do this. This is strategy 4 to 6. And yeah, I want to basically go through these and yeah, let me share the screen. So as before, basically what we're doing, we're going through some material. It is basically the same material as we had in as we have online in the tool. But okay, let's try. Does that work? I think it does. So yeah, so to find the material, there's a folder called Team Success, which is in internal entrepreneurship, and then strategic coach Unterlag. And there's the Team Success in there. Right now, today we talk about 4 to 6, where we have a PDF with exercises, we have a transcript, and we have a link. The link to the videos is here, Team Success web platform, just in the main folder. So here you see everything listed and you can watch the videos. Also here, there's the downloads, there's the exercises, and all these things are all here. If you don't have access, let me know. Yeah. I think you both have, right?
Yeah.
You're
yes.
already on there and listening. Okay, so let's go. Let's jump in. So this one. So the first one is the number 4 actually, is having the ownership attitude. So the idea here is that I invite you all, people present and non-present, to take responsibility for your project. So let me say what I mean with that. So basically, we have the idea that that responsibility usually in more traditional companies, it's like you equate it with blame. So it's like, oh yeah, you have to be responsible for that. It's like the threat, like I'm gonna make you suffer for this, and that's not. Yeah, it's kind of natural, but it's not that what I mean at all. So the idea of taking responsibility is connected to this sort of freedom we live at Simplificator. And one important aspect here is that basically we can, by taking responsibility, we can actually structure what the results become. So like you take on the idea that you said you take responsibility means that you connect it to everything you know about the company and the people and the activities and the projects. So like when you're basically when you're doing a job, it's not about like I'm fulfilling a checklist. That's not the idea. It's more about like what impact can this have? Like what is going to be the result? Yeah. So this is like this is basically means that, okay, what can I do? What's the goal of the company, the project, whatever? What can I do? Where do I need help? Who can I partner with? And in that regard, if you take responsibility, it's not just like I can do it or I cannot. It's more like, okay, who do I work with? And how can I make sure that there's a good result for this? So yeah, it's basically allow yourself to think broader. What does it mean? What's the intent? What's behind it? This is the idea of taking responsibility. Now, that also means that you're taking risks because you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. Maybe if you're really thinking deeper, what's at stake here and what we want, it means that you have to take risks. And it's a little scary, but in a sense, like the entrepreneurial approach, that's what we're talking about. That's exactly what we talked about before. Like, you know, taking risk is part of like, I'm more motivated by the opportunities than by the stability. So in a sense, taking risk is a necessary evil, and it's a way how to actually move forward. It usually means outside of the comfort zone. So that means that you will make mistakes, because no one can expect, like if you're going to be trusted to try new things, then it's not always going to work. But if you're committed to like to doing it and learning, like either be successful or to learn that thing, So mistakes are part of the package. So you're doing what you can, and you can trust. And that's something I really stand behind. You know, like the fear of this is mostly because you think that someone makes you pay for something you couldn't really do better. So the idea is then that if you do make mistakes, that it is okay, as long as we learn, as long as we share, as long as we collaborate. So that's the trust bit is the key to this whole ownership attitude here, because like we basically expect that people step out of their comfort zone, they take risks, they make mistakes. And if I then would come and says, why did you know, do this, wouldn't be helpful, then people wouldn't trust to risk to collaborate anymore. That's the way to move into the job, to say like, okay, what's the outcome and how can we do that? By taking the risks, by taking responsibility and trying to see how can I bring myself in. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
Questions?
For some people, it's easier to take risks. And what do the others do?
Well, this is why we invite people to take risks. Ultimately, this is the way forward. You know, like Simplificator is too small to have a predefined job for everyone, which they can execute without taking risks, just by staying inside the boundaries. So we are still a learning organization. We need to be, right? We need to take risks and move, right? If we're like just trying to execute on what we already know, we will not grow. So in that sense, really I invite everyone to take risks. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's an expectation. I don't think it's really negotiable at this point. Maybe there are some small roles you could just fulfill by staying in your on your track, but I don't think that's very interesting for many people here for very long. Yeah. So, and also like it's much more interesting, right? If you ditch the fear, if you ditch the, like if you trust that, yeah, I'm not going to be chastised for taking initiative, then there's so much opportunity like for stuff you can do that's more interesting. I mean, why would you stay in your lane and just like put the blinders on if you know that like life could be more interesting and there's not even a danger, it's actually welcomed, right? So the way to take responsibility is like it's communication, actions, and projects. It's like basically what are you saying and what are you not saying? Like think about it like a bit proactively. Like if you take responsibility for something, like if you think about this, like what am I willing to say and where am I stepping back? And on the other side, like what am I doing and what am I not doing? Like the actions, like where am I here in this system? And in terms of projects, like where do I involve other people and where do I not? Like where do I step back and hope others organize, and where do I take charge and responsibility and help organizing the system? It's not, yeah, we'll talk about more a bit later about hierarchy versus partnering. This is the sixth one which we talk about today. So here the suggestion is like ask the following questions before starting a project. It's like, what do I need to know in order for this project to be a success? I mean, we use that on tickets, for example. We have acceptance criteria. Also at other places, we try to visualize a good outcome. That's really helpful to know, because then that helps you to see the whole picture and actually take responsibility. And a second quoted thing here is like, what's the worst case scenario? What are you worried about that you can steps to make sure that it doesn't happen? Reason for that is to address the fear in a proactive manner. You know, to like that you're able to take risks and you're aware of the risks, and you say, okay, we'll find out if that's going to happen or not. Best case scenario, what do we need to be working toward? That's visualizing the goal again, you know, in order to know what's involved. And the criteria for success. What standards do I have to make sure I hit for you to have confidence? Like what do you need to, the confidence to know, okay, this is a good approach. nothing's perfect, right? You don't need to know exactly from the start, okay, that's going to work, but it's an important parameter to say, okay, I know where we're going, I know what are the risks, I know what I can do here and where I partner, and yeah, being proactive about this sort of mind process, not just jumping in and doing something, right? It's about like, okay, what does that mean? Like, where do we come from? Where do we go? Why? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a question about it. Are these questions for us to ask ourselves, or is it for us to ask you as the entrepreneur? Like, what is like your worst case scenario from like, I feel there's the like, how can we align all these risk taking or action with what is happening with what you want or with the company goal, let's say?
Yeah,
is it
it's a
just
good
this
question.
one-to-one, or is it a one-to-group, or one to the entrepreneur?
So first you I mean, at some points you will know already, but at many points you will not, and then it's time to ask. And whoever's you're collaborating with on anything, I think that is actually the thing. So like for marketing, okay, what's the criteria for success in marketing? A big part you answer yourself, but we have had conversations about it too. And to know, okay, what's the outcome? What do we want actually? What's the goal of this, right? So what's the best case scenario? Like what would success look like? Those conversations we do have on that level. Whereas if you're talking with Miriam about the text which we want to publish, you probably know what the goals are for a good article. And you can have a conversation with Miriam about that, and maybe Miriam also reaches out and says, like, you know, like, can we like tune it, the language in a certain way? So who's reading this, and where do we publish, and all that? Those things are relevant. And in that sense, if you just say, yeah, she told me to translate it from English to German, and you just do that, you're not thinking you're not really taking responsibility for the outcome. Because you need to know, okay, why do we publish, where do we publish, and so on. Like you're asking the bigger questions. What's the goal here, and where are the risks?
So like on every level of
Definitely
collaboration. Okay.
Yes. And this is a modern way of working, right? I mean, in the past, it was more like, okay, I have a railroad to run, and this is your job. And don't step out of that job. You know, there's stuff happening if you step outside your job, but you do your job properly and perfectly. That's the way how a machine works. But if we're in an entrepreneurial organization, what we need is basically we need to network. We need to think outside the box. It's the way to handle complexity. And the world's changing faster, so we need to collaborate more, especially in a situation here where we're building a company. Basically, we figure out what works, we ditch what doesn't work. We invent new ideas on what could work, and in that whole thing together, we get to the better point, and that requires that we take risks and we step outside of that comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So now the idea is to score yourself. This is just an exercise you do by yourself. So if you have the PDF or a printout or a notability or something, that you basically take this, you take a couple of minutes, and the idea is to think about an example where you took full ownership. Yeah, basically where you've been successful with that, and where you feel like what worked. And yeah, just as a status quo, this is a conversation you have with yourself, and you can fill this in. I'm now playing music for a couple of minutes, and then we could go back. I was a bit late. A little bit of music. Are we good? Shall we continue?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to share, you can, but you don't have to. This is actually your own conversation. So success strategy 5, be in alignment. All right, so this is about values. This is about knowing what we do and how we do it. So actually it really means to find out the overall goal or result to do whatever you need to do to align with it. So this is about the goal. It's about like, how do we do stuff here? So why is this important? We talk about alignment. It's about the big picture, like what are we doing at Simplificator? What are the core values and the purpose of the organization? And the idea behind it is that if you share those ideas, you know, Shuk, we had a conversation a few times, you know, like this idea that the way how we approach things at Simplificator is different than other places. This is a cultural thing. And you like it because you feel like your values align with this, with how we do things at Simplificator. So the people's core values should be aligned with what Simplificator is doing.
Just to correct you, I love it. I don't just like it.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing, right? This is about the core values. I mean, for example, like the example in the video is, I think it was for profit or non-profit. You know, this company needs to make a profit. It's a for-profit organization. You know, it's an entrepreneurial company. We have certain aspects where we want to improve the world, but we do also need to make a profit. Now, there's several ways how you can improve the world with a non-profit. And then your priorities on what to do might shift slightly, right? You might not, I mean, I can understand this. That's a good example to say like, okay, we have a certain approach which we're taking in the market. And in order to be successful, we want to be profitable. Yeah, sometimes things we do might contradict with that, but generally we do judge what we're doing, not just by the impact we have for society or for like, you know, let's say the onboarding of juniors is an important factor, you know, and it is an important factor because we profit from it as well. And we teach people, we think it's a relevant function in society, but it has to pay. It's not that we're doing that just because we want to be good, right? So there's a lot of values in there. We actually are kind of explicit about the values, right? We have the, okay, let's try the 5 values. Yes.
Collaborate closely.
Yeah. Don't look it up.
Get things done.
Yeah. Look,
Dare to ask, dare to question, dare to ask, right?
there's a question.
Dare to question, love what you do.
Yeah.
Get things done.
Did we have getting some? Did we have collaborate closely?
Yeah, he said it. Yeah.
Okay. What's missing? Did we have all 5?
I think now it's all 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so this is an exercise, and there's more text towards those things, but it's the idea basically that we say, with a good approach to work, we can generate more value for the client as well. By loving what we do, we have sometimes several times more productivity than if you just do what told. With the collaborating closely, we have a better chance of taking in the complexity. With the daring to question, we have a chance of avoiding bigger mistakes. All these things lead towards simplifying the life for our clients, making simpler software, making more human-centric software, helping people get their work done, and optimizing what is. And that part, I mean, we're still, we're still working on the exact wording for something for the for outwards communication, but the ideas are there, that we say we want to improve the world by process and software optimization and helping people with smart solutions, right? Things that clients didn't think they needed, but actually solved their problem very well. Those things are ideal. So when you know the core values of Simplificator and the purpose, why it's in business, you can align yourself with that. And that's the idea here of this thing, be in alignment. So it needs to be something that resonates with you. There's different perspectives and aspects with these values, but they're all important. So the alignment is that if you see that, okay, the company wants to do this, and I see things that I want to do personally within that, then you bring in your passion into your work, right? Then it's the love what you do aspect. You don't just bring your head. You want to help solving that thing, and whatever, like the problems we have at work, because we're not just optimizing the job we have, we're optimizing towards the bigger outcome, the purpose. And that alignment means that we're more aligned, more in line, it's more fun too, right? So it's the micro scale too, right? Because everything we do is basically everything we do basically plays into the bigger purpose. And so the purpose of a domain is playing into the purpose of the company, and the purpose of the purpose of the work people do within the domains should play into the purpose of the domain. So there's a whole hierarchy of needs here. So find out what brings us most in that regard. It's always good. It's similar to the first one we looked at, right? You're looking at the bigger picture, and you see how that plays into the bigger picture. And if then you're taking responsibility and step forward and are proactive about it, then the whole company profits, and we as people as well.
Can I take this chance to ask if you can, like, for the purpose, importance, ideal outcome, worst result, give us something about Simplificator? Like, how would you, to get more clarity about, let's say, vision, core values, I understand fully, but let's say purpose, importance, ideal outcome would be also important to have a clarity about that, because it's more practical outcomes that I can align the domain with.
Sure. So what we are trying to do at Simplificator purpose is like making life, like making life simpler for our clients. That's not always easy. Like, you cannot presuppose that it's simple, right? You cannot just like do the simple thing and think it's done, right? Purpose, we said, like, we want to combine the technical knowledge we have with the communication we have, and apply the technology to the things that the clients need. And we call that innovation, right? So the purpose is innovation, that we help clients to find good solutions. Yeah, we talked about that. Importance, why is it important? People spend big fractions of their work time staring into computer screens and doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, right? I mean, in the small case, it's the older guy who tries to buy a ticket at a ticket machine at Bahnhof, right? In the bigger picture, it's like a guy who's has to copy for 2 days every month. He has to copy the results from an Excel into an SAP spreadsheet somehow every month, right? Or yeah, just like, you know, to move forward as humans, we need to automate things. We need to simplify things. We need to make it more human-centric. Yeah. So importance saves a bunch of time and makes our lives better, right? Ideal outcome. I think at the moment we're struggling a little bit there with like the way how we repeatedly do projects. An ideal outcome is that we have a great name doing that sort of work, and clients come to us and we deliver one solution after the other. And if people have, as soon as they have budget again, they see that they're going to save so much in the future, they're coming to us to simplify the next thing. Worst result, yeah, struggling to stand still, being pushed by outsourcers for prices, not having a clear value proposition. I would say that's the worst result here. And best result would be that we can work efficiently and people can contribute. I mean, there's more we can say, and basically also in the video it says, like, don't assume that the values are explicit. Don't assume that the purpose is explicit. You know, like most companies don't really have that. So if you don't have it, then just look how people behave, extract what drives them, extract, like every action is basically a representation of values and purpose. So if we're not explicit on every place, all of us can be proactive and say, look, I think in our values, we need to really make sure that the collaborate closely means that, you know, like there's so many things we can improve on this. And again, take responsibility, come with an idea. You have open ears here. Make sense?
Thanks. Yep.
Yeah, and here the picture is that if we know then, according to the vision core values, and we know where we want to go and what the good result would look like, we know that a little bit in more detail, that we say, like, that's the criteria which need to be fulfilled, then we get to a point where growth can happen, right? So it's an enormous freedom as well, because like the thing is, yeah, that's a freedom pit. I wanted to talk about that too. So if I know that someone that works for us groks it, knows what simplificator means and stands for, and knows about the values, it means that people that I can and the other people will be happy to let people run, right? To give them more freedom, more liberty, more decision power, more, you know, more power to you. Because otherwise it's more like, yeah, let me see that, let me check that. The more we have the assumption that those things are true, the more freedom comes in, right? So if we know what's needed in order to get the good result, if you know what's needed to get the good result and what you need to accomplish, then yeah, then basically then stuff flies, right? And it's in alignment. That's the word here, right? Because then you basically by yourself, you walk in the same direction towards the stars which we put up in the sky. That we basically say that that's the direction, and you know, otherwise there's always like a little bit of a misalignment. There's going to be discussions about, yeah, but you said and I said, but if you know where we're going, then those things are small fry. So let's do the same thing again. Oh no, here, take action. We didn't look at that yet. So learning company values. If they're not stated, write down what you think they are. This is when, if you, like the values we do have, there might be, you know, we might also have values which we haven't identified. It's possible, you know, in our culture. So maybe it's worth thinking about that. There's a link also on the Drive for Zappos. Here. Zappos has a page where they talk about their values. If it's loading. That's confusing. There we go. So they have, for example, like the one I read the book. So the one which I found the most interesting is like, where is it? How can I read it? Is it here? Yeah, here. Great fun and a little weirdness. That's one of their values. And the way how that shows is the first package you order, they deliver shoes. So the first package of shoes you ordered have a little gold ribbon in it, and like there's a letter saying that the head of delivery and the CEO performed a little dance and sent the parcel on the way. There's like this sort of playfulness in the company, and they want to put that in everywhere. Every company has a different set of values, but yeah, this is an interesting one to read. Can be an inspiration too for us, maybe. Okay, so that's here. Then always get specific. Oh, the link, yeah, that's a PDF that has a link to. Always get specific about the results that you're shooting for. This is like the success criteria, and don't hesitate to ask the dumb question. Someone else is likely wondering the same thing. You know, that the question also counts inside. You know, and ask questions now and all that, you know, that we live, basically be open about those questions, right? Good. So be in alignment, again, a little bit of music, and then you can score yourself, and you can try to try to find a time. Hang on, I want to look at text here. Here's how you can take action. Time to score yourself. How aligned are you with what you're doing every day, with what your company is about? There's lots of different angles you can take into consideration when you're answering the question. Then write down an example, hopefully when you were really aligned, and capture that. I know for me, and so on, like there's the text in this transcript. That's the idea, to basically think of a type of an alignment. I know, like Urs, you're just here fresh, but maybe there's already something where you see like, okay, that's where I'm taking responsibility, when I'm aligning, when I'm doing steps that are within the purpose of the company and aligned. Good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You good?
Mhm.
All right. So let's continue. The third one, sixth one. Be a partner. Okay, so being a partner, this is a very strong one for me. This means to value and respect other people's talents and goals as well as your own. On the performance review, we call that value different personalities. The idea is to have a partnership mindset as opposed to a subordinate mindset. So it's more important to know, okay, this person is good at this, I'm good at that, being self-aware. So as opposed, this is a big difference, I think, from entrepreneurial organization, especially simplificator, and more traditional places I've seen is like in the more traditional places, everything is kind of dictated by where you are in the status hierarchy, where you are in that schematic. And the mindset we come from, maybe like if you worked in a large organization, you probably felt that the strongest, right? That's probably sort of like inbred, almost like you have been taught or raised away from your family or something. Like there's clear like boss employee, yeah. But with us, it's actually a whole different thing. We basically see that every one of us has different abilities and has different ways of communicating and different strengths. And we want to basically make sure that everyone can work in their strong point. Like the love what you do description basically says that, right? There's a way that you can perform well if you are authentic. And to be authentic, you cannot be good at everything that other people can be good at. So knowing what your authentic strength is and knowing what other people's authentic strength is more important than having a clear hierarchy of who says whom what to do, right? So yeah, there's like too many people that look up and say like, yeah, they have more power, I shouldn't do this. Or the worst thing is like, that's not my job. Yeah, this is like the line that is the defense mechanism of someone who wants to sit in a corner and be told what to do. Yeah, and it's important basically to break out of that, to say like, I want to see how we are working towards the purpose we give ourselves, and yeah, and then step out of this sort of mindset that holds us back. And there's a list here, basically what are typical words that describe the partner mindset, and that is proactive versus reactive. So kick stuff off rather than wait for anything to happen first. Highly capable as opposed to competent, because we're working in our authentic ability. We are much more in the space where we can really contribute, and we're not just like fulfilling a task that has been written by someone else. That goes above and beyond versus puts in minimal effort. I mean, the reason why just staying back, you know, like internally, like shutting yourself off, the reason for that is, again, fear, right? The idea of like, I can't, like this, I can't be held responsible for things that I mess up. And that's because there's a lack of trust. But if you have a good trust, then you basically, you do what the job requires, but then you basically improve the job. You're creating more there. The open and honest is also a consequence, because you trust that if you're honest, that nothing will break. It's actually a good thing. Whereas in a subordinate mindset, it's like, okay, as long as I don't say anything, I'm not saying anything wrong. Yeah, trustful versus distrustful, that's the basis of it. Taking initiative, again, stepping outside the clear role in order to improve things, improve the role, improve the outer circle. speaking up versus holding back, collaborative teamwork versus individual. Yeah, that one's a good one, because if we are authentically ourselves, then we know that we can do some stuff well and some other stuff not. And if we are communicative and open and we talk about those things with others, we also know what other people are good at. And so what it leads to is, if I know that I authentically can, let's say, inspire, but I know someone else can authentically organize, I will want to work together who can organize, right? And that creates the collaborative teamwork. And again, because I'm working in my authentic ability, I can be more confident, yeah, because I know that this is right, and what I feel by my intuition is the right thing, because I'm authentic in my role. Versus if I have to fulfill jobs that I'm not really good at, there's more of that fear involved. Yeah. Yeah, and the point here is also to see in order to have a hierarchical organization that works, you need brilliant managers. And I'm an entrepreneur, and we all found out that I'm not always the best manager, right? That's something that, like, yeah, to a large extent, the entrepreneurs who are the visual thinkers, they're better at sort of the optimism part and not so good at like following up and being detailed. So yeah, so the partnership mindset is where you step up and learn, lean in, and you embrace and you find out stuff and you take initiative. And you're aligned, and all these things then play together into something that brings us forward. Yeah. Yeah. So when we all look at each other as partners, it changes the dynamic, right? It's not top down, it's really much more of a network approach. Yes, we have some structures with the domains. Yes, we have some job descriptions, and we have some relationships where one person knows more, maybe takes more risks, maybe holds more responsibility. And yes, of course, that also sometimes means that there's another salary attached to that one. But it's about like, what do I bring? What do they bring? And how can we connect it all, right? And everyone can do that, like you can take responsibility for your influence, sphere of influence at any position in the company. That's true for juniors, that's true for seniors, that's true for me. Some things I can't take influence and some things I better not, right? So that's as true for me as it is for a junior person. And in that sense, it's really a network, because, like there's, maybe you could put the customer as the king on top and then make a hierarchy, but in a sense there's no point, because there are needs at different places, and those needs need collaboration and needs this so to really clear, we can make a contrast between a partner mindset versus a subordinate mindset, and that's basically here. And if you look at this and the words, I mean, I'd much rather be on the left. And I think everyone does, like at Simplificator. This idea, I mean, the sense of safety you gain if you're like in a bank job, or it's not attractive to the people who work with Simplificator. And that's what makes this company also cool, that you have the freedom, you have the trust, you have the alignment, you have all this. So yeah. Questions to that? So the taking action steps here are phrase your concerns. When we discuss stuff, phrase your concerns in a genuine way as questions. Like one thing that's difficult is basically trying to find fault outside of your job description, right? Like why don't, like, what, I don't like this, or like the complaining part, like why do we do this? Like it should be a genuine way of saying, okay, how can we perform well on this in this situation? Like what are some ideas, or what can I do? Yeah. Usually I like to push people a bit into the optimism point, like not being pessimistic and say that's bad, that's bad, that's bad, but into the optimism, say like, okay, this part works, this part doesn't, what can we do in order to improve? Yeah. There's another concept from strategic coach called the gap and the gain. You know, like if you're setting ourselves goals and we look forward, we see everything that's missing. And if we're doing that for too long, then we always feel like stuff's missing and we live in that gap. We manifest more gap, more trouble. Whereas if we're looking regularly into, okay, what does work and how can we, like, where do we want to go ultimately? And what can we do now to move ourselves into that direction? Those things are all three are positives. Like our goals are positives, the stuff we can do and what we've achieved is positive. The fact that what's missing, yes, it's there, but it doesn't necessarily give us the answer because it's the pit. It's like it's the stuff that didn't work, right? But we can build up on the stuff that works. So in that sense, yeah, ask the questions, but also like be proactive about it, right? And then say, okay, that's things we can do. Regardless of the current role in the organization, focus on the contribution you're making, not your status or lack of it. And that's a good line here. All status, if ever need, will come as a result of your contribution. We don't work with titles. There are titles, yes, I guess, but they're not important. It's not like that they attach to any sort of salary situation. We are judging people on their performance, where they are in their development and how much risk they take and how much damage they could do to the company. And that's all basically contributing to the understanding we have, the responsibilities we give, and the trust we place in people. And that's up to everyone to extend that. You know, like everyone can. Everyone is welcome and invited to. Yes, good. Oh, we're actually out of time. I've been slow today. Again, a short song. Let's pick a short one, or I'll have to stop it in the middle. All right. So let's judge ourselves and find an example of where we were a partner, where we valued this collaboration. 1 minute. All right. Good. We're almost at the end. The last bit now is basically strategizing. So the strategizing step is the idea that we look at the last three things we talked about. So the ownership attitudes, the being alignment, and being a partner. And what is one area of focus that if you were to really pay some attention, put some time and effort thinking into, could really increase your impact over the next, let's say, 90 days. And when you figured it out, then basically the idea is like to visualize a good outcome, creating the success criteria for yourself, what you think then is required. And from those things, this is a little bit like the impact filter. There's a short version of it. That you then decide on some specific actions you can take right now. That would then help you gain in that entrepreneurial attitude. So in a sense, like draw a picture for yourself, visualize a good outcome, say what needs to be true in order for this to be a success. And then you can take some things with actually sort of activities. So something that could be recorded on a camera, like calling someone, writing something, not thinking about, just something specific, a specific action you can do. Yeah. If you have a couple of minutes, let's spend, let's say 2 minutes on this to start it. And then we'll finish up. We'll finish up later. But 2 minutes we should now give ourselves to capture what we now have in our heads. And then to work out the details, we can probably do also after lunch. Questions? All right, let's do it. All right. So I think that's probably the time we give ourselves. Do you mind sharing what you came up with, the outcome?
Yeah, I can do.
All right.
I wrote down as ideal outcome to define a customer journey for the sales process.
Good. Thank you. And Chuk?
I wrote that I feel it's the ownership attitude, especially about the worst case scenario outcome and the best scenario outcome from each project, to be more specific about these 2 points. I'm sorry, just a second, my daughter came. I'll just open the door.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we're done. Thank you very much for your time. This is really valuable to me. I think this is really, it's going to help us to grow and to learn and to stay a learning organization. So in that regard, I hope that we stay in this sort of learning approach. We have 2 more. This is halfway of these values, and afterwards we dive into more of like of the other tools. And yeah, and Shuk is my co now, so we can basically, if anyone listening or yeah has a question, Shuk is also here to help if I'm too busy or something. Knows where everything is, knows what the content is and stuff. So yeah, thank you very much. And I guess it's time for lunch.
Yep. You can say
Bye,
hi.
everybody.
Hello. Bye bye.
Hello.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.